Good evening. We are going to call this meeting to order. Today is January 15th, 2025, and this is the meeting of the Governance and Policy Committee. My name is Jasmine Ford-Capik. I'm the governance officer and will be presiding over the meeting until we elect our chair. Please note that all members are present. We will now view the acknowledgement of traditional lands.
The land upon which we work, live, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Michizagig and Anishinaabe, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize the rich pre-contact history and relationships which include the Anishinaabe and the Ongwe Hongwe.
Since European contact, this land continues to be home to Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As responsible community members, we value the diversity, dignity, and worth of all people.
Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral land
and continues to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms.
We are committed to learning true history to reconcile, make reparations, and fulfill our treaty obligations to the original peoples and our collective responsibilities to the lands, water, animals, and each other for future generations.
Thank you. Our first order of business this evening is the election of the committee chair. We will now open nominations. Please raise your hand if you wish to put forward a nomination. Please note that a committee member may nominate themselves.
I'd like to nominate Trustee Brad Dahl for chair.
I see, and you're moving that motion. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Trustee Davies? Are there any other nominations for committee chair? I'll call again. Are there any nominations for committee chair? Calling for a third time. Are there any nominations for committee chair? Seeing none, may I now have a motion that the nominations be closed? Trustee Alves, Trustee Pomoli. Trustee McDonald, do you accept this nomination?
Yes, I do.
May I have a motion to appoint Trustee McDonald as chair of the Governance and Policy Committee? Trustee Alves, seconder. Trustee Clark. Trustee McDonald, congratulations, you are claimed as chair. I invite you to take the chair's seat and say a few words.
Oh, no. Very few words. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your support in this role, and I enjoy working on this committee with you. So now we're going to go to the vice chair. So do I have a person to nominate? Raise your hand. I see Trustee Davies.
I'd like to nominate Trustee Alves. Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Davies. Trustee, we have a seconder of that. Okay, Trustee Clark. Trustee Alves, are you willing to take on the role as vice chair?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations for the role of vice chair? So second request, I'll ask one more time. Does anyone want to nominate a vice chair or self-nominate themselves? Seeing none, okay. Then we'll go on to, I guess, someone put on a motion on the floor to nominate Trustee Alves as vice chair. Okay, Trustee Pomoli, seconded by Trustee Clark. Congratulations, Trustee Alves. You want to say a few words?
Thank you. Thank you.
You're proud mother. I'll give you all the minutes if you want to say a word.
Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you very much. We'll now move on to our next step. So we have to go now to our agenda, and we're going to have to approve our amended agenda, which has the email sent out, which includes item, I think 8.4, is it? That's been added to the agenda. Do we have any comments before we start that process about the agenda? Do I have someone to put it on the floor? Trustee Alves, Trustee Bailey seconds it. All those in favor of the agenda? Okay, let's move forward. So we have the approval of the minutes, the governance, sorry. Oh, sorry. Yes, declaration of conflict of interest. We shouldn't forget that. That's important. Do I have any declarations of conflict here? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of minutes of the governance meeting of November 13th. So, Trustee Alspert on the floor. Trustee Kamali will second that. Any comments or questions about the minutes from the November meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, minutes approved. Now we're going to move on to 7.8. We do have a delegation. Jamie Peddle, I think you're in the back there.
Yeah, right here, buddy.
Yes. So why don't you come up to the end here? You can sit there, and we'll turn the mic on.
Perfect.
So I'll let everyone know the process, and then we'll hand it over to you. Okay. So delegations are a great way to engage our community with staff and students, as well as the community who bring their voice to the table to be heard. In the process of filing for a delegation, you are given the written notice that it includes 10 minutes, which we will be timing to ensure you stay on target. We also keep it very professional. We do not name colleagues, staff, or other members, so we try not to disparage anyone and just keep it focused on facts and the delegation at hand, what you're doing. So without any questions before I start from you, okay, please begin.
Testing.
Put you on.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Good stuff. All right. Good day. My name is Jamie Peddle. I'm the founder of Canadian Autism Treatment for Medicare Coalition. The scientific community has proven since the 1980s that intensive behavior intervention based on the principles of ABA therapy works. With the right amount of therapy, children are able to adapt to their school setting that they are placed in. My delegation today is about having debates for trustees who are running for office during election time. Peel region has a population of over around 2 million or so. And we as Canadians, we take our democracy seriously, which is why the school should have debates or find a way, whether it's through charities, etc., to find some type of way to have debates. People need to know on what each trustee is about, their platform and their record, so forth. I'm going to tell you my experience, which is why I'm here today. When my son Jacob was brought into the school system, he was diagnosed with severe autism, severely affected by intellectual disability. When Jacob was put into Jefferson Public School from kindergarten to grade 2, he wasn't allowed to go to school for the very first 2 weeks of school. I was told by the principal that the school needs to get set up so they're able to bring Jacob into the school. This is what the reason was. When Jacob was going to Erin Oaks, when Erin Oaks was canceled certain times, I would call up the school and say, can I bring my son in? And they told me, no, Jamie, we don't have the resources to deal with your son. And I called up my trustee numerous times, Carrie Andrews. She did nothing for me. I reported this, no advocacy, nothing. When Jacob went to Williams Parkway School at grade 6, before that, we had our meeting with the principal. They knew about Jacob and everything else. He was a flight risk and everything else. The school had lost my son. He ran 1.6 kilometers in 22 minutes. If it wasn't for the quick response of the Peel Regional Police that found my son on McKay and Beauvert, my son would be killed today. He wouldn't be here with me. This is due to the neglect of the school system here we have here in Peel. I had a meeting with the principal and everything else. And they told me, oh yeah, don't worry, Mr. Peddle, we're sorry. You know, it won't happen again. We're going to address everything and all this stuff. Well, I found out that their EAs, they never had enough EAs into the classroom. Their EAs were not qualified to deal with Jacob's needs. Grade 7, same situation. They never lost, and thank God. But Jacob was being instructed to go and sleep in their ALE room. There's a room, they got mats around the walls here, and they call it an ALE room. And Jacob was being instructed to go sleep in this particular room. Yeah, it's so that's that. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to. I just had a nightmare with the school, and so the school was aware of this. I contacted my trustee. I won't mention any names since you offered that, but anyway, she's in charge of 7 and 8. I got no response. I met my trustee during the summertime regarding my situation. I never got a follow-up or nothing like that. No advocate for my situation or nothing like that. I was told that the role of a trustee is to inform and to educate. Not to advocate, but educate. I disagree with that. I strongly disagree with that. There's one goal for the education system here, and that is to prepare children to enter careers, to be productive members of society. And you guys are failing our kids. They're called dependents for a reason, and that is depend on us. If we don't have people that don't want to take their job seriously, then they shouldn't be in a certain position. We need real people that want to take their job seriously and that want to make a difference in life. So children can have a chance in life. Enough is enough, people. We live in a status quo education system. This is Canada. This is Canada. Right? Families should be able to call up somebody if they're an elected trustee and say, hey, this is my problem. You know what? I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to be there. We're going to address the issue. Well, this is not happening. And even with policies, giving ideas, no policies are put in place. What's going on here? So for some reason, we as a school board, we seem to have money for lawsuits, but we don't have money to run debates. I just don't get that. I mean, I don't know if the media is telling me something, but apparently so many school boards are suing whatever it is. But we don't have money to run debates. I just don't get that. So this is what my debate is. I mean, sorry, my delegation is. I would like to see my delegation put forward and accepted. I was here last time and it was turned down. And where the people that are running for trustees, we should have some type of debates like they do in the city, councilors and so forth, right? And so that way people can ask questions. They know what their trustee is about, their platform and everything else. And also we can challenge them on their record as well. There's no accountability. That's the problem we face here. That's pretty much it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Peddle.
Yeah.
So the next process is I'll ask the trustees if they have any questions of clarifications. And after that, then we'll then go to the next process. So these are, as trustees, let you know, it's just clarifications to understand or clarify what he said. We don't enter into debates. Okay. So Trustee Ellis, do you have a question of clarification?
Yes, sir. Thank you through your chair for a question for Mr. Peddle. So just around the conversation around debates. Now I don't believe that the institution would be able to host that debate. So my question for you is, have you worked with perhaps your homeowners association or third-party community organizations to see if they'll host a debate in your community. I can't speak for others, but I know for myself, where I'm from, members of the community do put on debates and they're run by the public. It's my understanding that that's the way it works for council as well. It wouldn't be necessarily held by the institution, but have you looked into that?
Well, you know what? I'm a big believer in where there's a political will, there's a political way. That's what I believe in. And I believe that, again, we need some serious people who want to take their job seriously. And this is something that should be looked into by the Peel District School Board when it comes to running debates. They can do this. They can do this. You guys are elected officials. You must have certain type of connections or people who fundraise you or sponsor you and all this kind of stuff. You know, this is something, you know, if you're an elected official, you should be saying, okay, well, you know, I want to take my record to the table, right? So I'm a big believer in where there's a political will, there's a political way. So I think the Peel District School Board should do that and maybe even work with the city of Brampton or the city of Mississauga, because they seem to have charitable debates. I mean, have you guys looked into that? I mean, we need to engage in the public more. We need to get the public more informed, right? We need to do more things, right? So, yeah.
Any other questions of clarification from trustees? Seeing none, so the next step is, may I have a motion to receive Mr. Peddle's delegation? So I have Vice Chair Alves put it on the floor, seconded by Vice Chair Davies. All those in receipt of the delegation? Okay, thank you very much for your delegation.
That's it. Okay, thank you. When can I expect something? Get something in writing or?
The motion was passed just to receive. There was no.
I know that, but like, is someone going to give me an email, send me a contact information? Because again, I put a delegation before and I didn't even get a response, man. Not even a response. I didn't even get an email. This is my whole point, right? This is my whole point about the whole system in general, right? So
the delegation process.
Okay.
You know, if it brings up an item, the trustee can put that and say, hey, I want that referred to so-and-so for a reply. Your motion was just to receive it. Now this will go in the meeting minutes, which will be received at the next committee meeting here and then go to the board. So at those two indication times, trustees who are part of those meetings can then ask or request any, maybe staff to respond to it or not.
Okay, so there is no guarantee for a response or what was said or nothing like that. Oh, okay. So I have a question. So why did I get a response from the SEAC one then?
Again, each committee is different.
Okay.
So at the end of each delegation, there's various things that can happen. We can receive your report, delegation, which we did. You can receive the delegation and ask for a response from maybe the director's office, or ask or refer your delegation to another committee for which they will do a response.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and I'll be sending you another email about another delegation that I have. All right. Have a good evening, folks. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to staff reports. Our first staff report is the policy management program, policy review schedule for our 24, 25. 24 is done. 25 is now in by LaShawna Murray. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Tonight, I'm providing for information the 2024-2025 policy review schedule. Annually, Governance and Policy develops a work plan that identifies policies for development or review based on the policy review cycle, board priorities, legislative changes, identified policy gaps, and emerging issues. This work plan and associated resources are communicated to each responsible office to engage in key policy development and review activities. These activities include convening a representative committee, setting the strategic direction of a policy, conducting an environmental scan of best practices and related board policies, drafting the policy, facilitating consultations, and engaging in an internal and then board of trustee approval process. Following approval by the Board of Trustees, the policy is made available on internal and external Peel websites and shared to the system through existing communication mechanisms. Each policy is implemented through procedures, guidelines, and resources. This year, there are 26 policies for review or development. The range of work for each policy varies due to its nature and scope. However, central to this work plan success is the process of policy coordination, both between policy documents and with respect to system priorities. When we engage in policy development, we aim to ensure consistency across board policies and procedures. We also evaluate and, where possible, act on the opportunity to streamline existing board policies. For example, we are currently assessing the impact of having a comprehensive staff expenses policy. This would be similar in structure to the trustee expenses policy. This could consolidate the 3 current policies pertaining to staff expenses, namely expenses, traveling allowance for board employees, and courses, conferences, and seminars. In addition, we focus on coordinating policy development to align with system priorities and key deadlines. To illustrate, ensuring that the annual update of the trustee honoraria policy is in effect in accordance with the term of office. While we aim to schedule and assign policies to scheduled governance and policy committee meetings, which would provide teams with more concrete timelines, the development process remains flexible and responsive to system needs. Additionally, to maintain integrity of the policy development and review process, policies are only brought forward to the trustees when they have progressed through all stages of policy development. As we look ahead for the remainder of the school year, we remain dedicated to accomplishing the items set out within this year's annual work plan, and we are currently on track for completion. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Great. Before we go to question period, with that, can I have someone put this on the floor? Trustee Clark, second by Trustee Davies. Any questions or comments? I have one. So we have 26 from now to the end of the year?
In total from September.
For September. So how many have we completed now? Sorry to put you on the spot. Is that we have to have half of them done?
I think 7.
7, yeah. So we have 18 to do.
Yes.
It's going to be a busy spring, I see.
Very busy spring.
Okay. Great. Great. Okay. Rest up. You know, go to the gym and we'll get this through. Great. So we'll probably have to have some meals brought in for that. But anyway, good. So all those in favor receipt of this report? Okay, so passed. We'll move on to 8.2, hiring practices policy by Masuma Kangura.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Through you, Chair, I'll present the policy regarding a policy that has been updated from the current hiring practices policy for receipt and approval. By way of background, the hiring practices policy applies to all PDSP employees and job applicants. The hiring practices policy ensures a fair, transparent, and an equitable hiring practice in response to the Ministry of Education 2020 review. The policy focuses on dismantling systemic barriers in hiring to foster a workforce that reflects the diversity of PDSP students and communities. The policy augments a workforce that is reflective of the students and communities so that we serve all students, regardless of their identity, and can achieve student success and well-being. The updated policy includes references to creating accountability within the process, a reference to align with the AODA, which is the Accessibility for Ontarians Disability Act, the special program under the Human Rights Code, and a new section regarding roles and responsibilities. The hiring policy is intended to ensure fairness and equity in all hiring processes within PDSP. The policy aligns with PPM 165, ensuring a consistent and transparent approach to hiring to foster a workforce that supports student achievement. This policy also aligns with human rights policy, equity and inclusive education policy, accessibility policy, the conflict of interest. It also aligns with the Human Rights Code and certainly the recommendations contained within the employment review system. The Human Resources, Partnerships and Equity has been leading the review and revision of the hiring practices policy. The policy outlines roles and responsibilities during hiring and aims to eliminate systemic barriers to ensure that decisions are made based on merit, lived experience, and within the anti-racism framework supporting student achievement. It incorporates recommendations from the Employment Systems Review and was informed by consultation from the public. With that, I'm requesting that as next steps, we're seeking approval of the policy in accordance with the board's policy approval process. And once approved, the policy and its corresponding procedure will replace the current version. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you outlining the differences, because I was trying to go through that and figure out what our answers well summarized by. So before we receive this policy, let's put it, or ask questions about it, let's put it on the floor. So Trustee L, seconded by Trustee Bailey. Okay, any questions or comments? Yes, Trustee Clark.
Thank you, through you, Chair. How many different types of, people do we include in our determination of hiring practices? Do we know how many disabled people that we have on staff? I know that's a bit of a.
Thank you for that
Yeah,
question. Thank you for that question, and through you, Chair. We do collect periodically data to the effect through the census. It is a voluntary process. We do not have any mandates for collecting identity-specific or lived experience specific data, but we do have data collected through the last census, which was conducted in 2022, 2023, and we hope to engage in another census process in the forthcoming year. And those are our data points where we would receive that kind of data sets.
Okay, if I can do a little follow-up. The second part of my question was, do we know how, in the interest of, our students seeing people like them, do we have many staff or teachers who have disabilities? So that a person who is who has a handicap is able to see somebody like them and to be able to aspire to not simply letting society tell them what they're capable of and being able to fulfill their own needs. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yes, again, relying on the self-report through the census process, we do collect that data. That data is non-identifiable, so we won't be able to assign a specific identity or a specific marker to staff. But certainly our efforts have yielded not just physical disability as well. There are staff who may identify, with other mental health disabilities, who are supporting students through their work daily within the classrooms.
Thank you for that answer.
Okay, so any other questions? Seeing none, let's all those received in approval of this hiring practice policy. Okay, so be it passed. Thank you so much. We're now going to go on to our PTSB communications policy presented by Michelle Green. Thank you.
Good evening, and through you, Chair. Tonight I'm recommending for approval the communications policy. Communications are central to the work of PTSB. Effective communications support advancing student achievement and belonging. Communications board values, priorities, initiatives, communicating board values, priorities, initiatives, and outcomes. Strengthening relationships with students, staff, families, and the PTSB community, and promoting transparency and accountability while enhancing trust and confidence in public education. The proposed communication policy establishes a comprehensive framework for effective, timely, and equitable communications across PTSB that is compliant with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, AUDA, Ontario Human Rights Code, and other relevant legislation. The proposed policy also introduces standardized guidelines for brand identity, media relations, and crisis communication, and commits to regular review and improvement of communications processes to ensure responsiveness and inclusivity. This policy will support the implementation of the multi-year strategic plan, PPM 170, school board communication with parents, and existing board procedures, including guest speaker protocol, protocols for school events, and guidelines for school and board websites. The development of the communication policy was informed by an environmental scan of school board and government policies and best practices, as well as internal and community consultation. Following approval of the policy, the Communications and Public Engagement team will develop and approve a detailed communication plan, update PDSB websites and digital platforms, and inform stakeholders through newsletters and social media. Thank you.
Great, thank you for this presentation of a new policy, brand new. So let's put this on the floor. Trustee Davies, Trustee Pomoli. So does anyone have questions? Okay, Vice Chair Alps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you, sir. So I think this is great. I've worked in communications as my daily profession, and this is something that I think the board can benefit greatly from. One thing that I think is particularly commendable is the section on crisis communications. I think, very specifically, 4.29 and 4.28 describe how and whom will handle crisis communications when folks are offline, frankly, when people aren't online during regular business hours. And I think looking to some of our communications in past, this will be immensely helpful. So we know who's doing what and who to go to. And I think also another note that I'm particularly interested in seeing is the communications plan as it relates to our online communications. I know I sent our director, Victor Rashmi Sarup, some best practices when it came to how we delineate our schools that are within our purview, whether it's by ward or by boundary, and how those hyperlinks work when it comes to accessibility. So the ADOA standard will be very helpful. So when families are on that website, to have hyperlinks linking back and front. Less of a question, Mr. Chairman, and more of a round of applause. Thank you very much for bringing this great policy.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
So just
Yes, Trustee Benjamin.
thank you, and through the chair. My only question is, when we have any doubts or questions, who is the go-to person? Because you find that sometimes lots of changes take place on the board website, and sometimes we don't understand, but whether it's communication or whatever, just give us one person, we can just send a little email with that little question. And as just pointed out by Trustee Alves, we did have the conversation about the primary and the secondary and the ward and by boundaries and how much of, because I myself had parents, kind of being confused about it. So just this, who's a contact person? Thank you.
And just to clarify, contact person, if you see a problem on the website?
Your website, yeah.
Okay.
Because it's communications.
Yep.
Thank you for the question through you, Chair. So yes, communications and public engagement would be your contact for website. When it's there's a trustee, you can reach out. We do work with governance depending on what it is, because some of that work would have to go through governance first, and then governance would look at it and then reach out to communication. So it really depends on what you're looking for. But of course, if there's ever an error, which we don't do, we would appreciate the direct reach out for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Benjamin. Trustee Davies.
More for clarification, like a spelling mistake or an error on the website, that's not communications, is that is?
Oh, no, you can reach out directly to me, communications for that.
Oh, so you directly, okay, so it's just, I just don't want to overwhelm the directors. I know that that's the only employee I should be talking to, but
yes,
don't want to overwhelm her. So Michelle Green, you are, if there's a problem with the website?
No.
Just so I'm not overstepping the process, I will defer to.
This is the governance officer and that like.
Thank you through the chair. I think a simple contact to make it easy for trustees would be to reach out to Aurelia, our assistant to trustee services, and she can help coordinate any communication.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So just make sure that Aurelia, our person, we can manage that.
That's
okay.
That's an excellent suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, yes, trustee House.
Thank you, through your chair, would just add maybe, in the sense of an emergency, because the policy will have a crisis communications contact, so that would likely be able to overspeak, but, senior manager Michelle Green,
Yes.
I believe that's correct. So just a heads up, if you see something that's like a crisis, like you see something that is, God forbid, an emergency, don't go to a really, because the after hours contact will likely be Michelle Green, or she'll know who to set you up with. So if you see something at 9 p.m. that requires like immediate attention.
Yes. Yes.
Anything that would be reputational.
Yeah.
Oh,
directly.
Also, so if you're in a crisis situation as trustee, you're including the chair in that conversation, just so you know, even though maybe that should be the committee. And we should include our governance office, just as a part of that. And, if it's, and who you're sending it to, could be Michelle, but it could be sending it to Rashmi too.
Yeah.
So these are all the kind of things that typically, if it's a crisis, so that's pretty serious. Type of thing. Okay, all those in favor of this new policy? Excellent, so being passed. So we'll now move on to the last item, 8.4, that was an addition to our item 8.4. Where do I have it? There you go. Yeah, I got it here. 8.4. So it's proposed amendments to the Peel District School Board Procedure Bylaw. So we're going to have our governance officer talk about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, as stated tonight, I am presenting a proposed amendment to the procedure bylaw. I want to outline the process and rationale for correcting the language of a motion that was inadvertently published with clerical errors on a board agenda previously. And just to take a moment to clarify the original intent of the notice of motion introduced at a previous board meeting and maintain the integrity of the original motion. The Governance and Policy Committee discussed the Days of Significance calendar report on May 21st, 2024. There was some great discussion held by the committee regarding the difficulty in setting commitments and obligations outside of board business when the board and committee schedules are not consistent. And that would be due to the requirement not to schedule board and committee meeting dates on the red dot days. Therefore, a notice of motion attached as Appendix A in the report was introduced at the June 10th, 2024 board meeting, which proposed an amendment to the procedure bylaw, which would state that board and committee meetings will not be subject to the identification of those red dot days, meaning that they would not be moved if it happens to fall on red dot day. The board, at its meeting held on July 2nd, 2024, where that notice of motion would then become a motion for consideration, attached as Appendix B, had incorrect language on a motion. It was not noticed at the time in the agenda package that the language was not the same as notice of motion. So I am bringing the proposed amendment, which aligns with the original notice of motion and discussion that was held here at this committee, for recommendation to the board and for this committee's review. And you'll see the recommendation contained in the report, which would mirror the same language as the original notice of motion in June. So just in the spirit of transparency, I wanted to be able to publish this publicly and address and give the board opportunity to correct the technical error.
Okay, so before we ask questions or comments, let's put it on the floor. Trustee Clark, seconded by Trustee Bailey. Okay, any comments or questions? It's clear about the mess up between the June and July. Okay, good. So let's vote on this. Sorry, you have sorry. So let's put this to a vote. All those in favor of the amendment to our board policy? Okay. So passed. So we're good. Excellent. So there's no notice of motions ahead of us. There's no communication, no notice of motion. So I'm looking for adjournment. Trustee Davies, seconded by Trustee Ellis. All those in favor? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you so much.